Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for May 8th, 2017. Can I have a motion to go into executive session for the matters pertaining to the employment history of particular individuals and negotiations?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have a motion to go back into public session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School Board meeting for May 8, 2017. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for our armed forces and those in our community who have lost loved ones, especially remembering the father-in-law of Sal Gallinelli, the father-in-law of Allison Boach, and Amanda Wallinger from the class of 2005.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Ralph, it's one of your favorite nights, I know.
It is. Thank you. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go there. So good evening, Mrs. Carbone, Mr. Magnani, members of the Board of Education, Mrs. O'Shea, Mr. Cole, fellow administrators, colleagues, friends, and relatives of our tenured candidates. One of the evenings that the Board's trustees, the administrators, and I most look forward to is tenure night. On Thursday, April 27, 2017, I had the pleasure of speaking to 81 juniors who were inducted into the Yorktown Chamber of the National Honor Society. One of the statements that I made to those students was this: how proud you must be in knowing that your building administrators and teachers think that you have the knowledge, the skills, the values, the character, and the attitude that you need to be inducted into the National Honor Society. It is the greatest feeling in the world when people believe in you and acknowledge that belief in such a significant way. And for those students, it was by their induction. Tonight, a very similar thought has come to my mind as I say to our colleagues who are up for tenure, how proud you must be that your building administrators, your central office administrators, and the Board of Education members believe that you have all the qualities necessary to educate our students and to prepare them to lead, serve, and make a difference, now locally in their school and community, and in the future globally in their society and world. As all of you know, I am inclined to recall stories at particular events. Did you get that? At particular events that connect us to the importance and value of our work. While I know that you recognize how important your jobs are, and how valued you are in the positions that you hold at YCSD. Sometimes it is good to have a reminder so that you never forget how important you are to the children that you work with now and to the children that you will work with in the future. I read a story way back in 1997 that really touched me. And while it is a very old story now, I believe that it captures the essence of teachers inspiring, influencing, and in this case, rescuing children. Excerpted from Moments for Mothers, the story goes like this. There was a school system in a large city, and it had a program to help children keep up with their schoolwork while they were in the hospital. One day, the teacher assigned to this particular program was instructed to visit a student at their local hospital. The teacher took the child's name, his hospital room number, and then went off to visit with the child's teacher. The classroom teacher told the visiting teacher that the class was studying nouns and adverbs. She went on to say that she would be very grateful if the visiting teacher could help the student understand these parts of speech so that he would not fall too far behind from the rest of the class. The visiting teacher went to see that boy in the afternoon. What she did not know was the boy had been seriously burned in a fire and was in great pain. Although the visiting teacher was upset at the condition of the boy, she took a deep breath. She did not want to alarm him with her look of insecurity. And she said, "I met with your classroom teacher today, and she wants me to review nouns and adverbs with you. I have prepared a lesson for you and I to work on together." When she left that afternoon, she was feeling a little bit insecure. She was disappointed because she felt she had not accomplished much. However, the next day upon her visit, the floor nurse called out to her and asked, "What did you do with that boy?" Concerned that she may have done something wrong, the visiting teacher began to apologize. The floor nurse quickly said, No, you don't know what I mean. We have been very worried about that particular child. But ever since yesterday, his whole attitude has changed. He's fighting back. He's responding to his treatments. It is as though he's decided to live." 2 weeks later, the boy was able to explain that he had completely given up hope until that visiting teacher had arrived. Everything changed when he came to this simple realization, which he expressed this way: "They would have not sent you here to work with me on nouns and adverbs if I were dying, would they? When you came prepared to teach me about those parts of speech, I knew I was going to live, and I wanted to." Like our National Honor Society students who were inducted on April 27th, we know that you have great knowledge and a wonderful skill set that will be greatly beneficial to our students on this day and every day from here on that you work in the district. However, what the board knows through your building principals, through Mrs. O'Shea and Mr. Rosen and myself, is that you are much more than that. You have the ability to make students feel welcomed. You have the ability to make them feel accepted. You have the ability to make them feel valued and worthy. And as a result, they are successful in your classes. Perhaps most important of all is like the visiting teacher in the story. You have the ability to give them hope. And in today's world, that is a tall order. But it is something that all of you have done and that you continue to do on a needed basis every single day. Over the last 2 weeks, 3 of our elementary students and high school students lost either their father or their mother. It is unimaginable to me that these young children will face this loss at such an early age. However, my consolation comes from knowing that they are in class with people like yourselves, people who care, people who show compassion, and people who go over and above the call of duty to let our students know that they are never alone and that they never need be afraid. It is for this reason, and for so many more, that our board has accepted my recommendations to award you tenure. This is our way of saying thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for all you are. And it's also our way of saying we hope that you will be with us for a long, long time. In fact, I could not be happier that my last tenure recommendations end on the high note that they will end on this evening with such a wonderful group of educators. And clearly, all of you must realize how remarkable you are, because look at the turnout that you have from your colleagues. And to me, that says so much. So at this point, I am proud to introduce you to our board this evening, so I'm going to ask them if they don't mind to stand on the side. They have heard your stories many, many times over the years, and now at last they will be able to connect the face and story to the people that we have such great faith in as they continue the work with educating the whole child. Okay. When I call your name, please come up and be welcomed and acknowledged by our board members. I think Mrs. Tomini is also in the audience, so she's like Vanna White. She's the PTSA president, and she does a lot of work for our schools. And she's the mother of 4 children in our schools. Welcome, Vanna. Thank you, Pat. I always felt he was very untalented. So, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Roberts, please, to join me at the podium. You don't have to do anything but hug and kiss them. I don't want you to get crazy. I know, I don't want you to get crazy. She always prepares about a month ahead for anything that she has to do. So this is Mrs. Roberts, as most of you know, and she is the principal of Crampon School, and we are going to begin with her inductees. The first person that I'd like to speak about, just briefly, is Caitlin Finaro, who is a special educator at Crampon School. And for all of you who know Caitlin, how lucky you are to have somebody like herself to work with. She is probably one of the most pleasant, attentive, and unassuming young women that I've ever met. I have the distinct honor of going in to observe the teachers unexpected, unannounced. They don't know I'm coming. So imagine that, you know, you're very young, and all of a sudden the superintendent appears at your door. But I'm always very cordial. I always say, is it okay if I stay? And what are you going to say? No, no, I don't want you. And they always say, yes, of course, you should certainly stay, but don't get me nervous. So at any rate, Caitlin works very closely with the 5th grade team. She does a remarkable, remarkable job, and she is always cheerful, welcoming, and accepting of our students. And I'd like to introduce you to Caitlin Finaro. Send Tom Cole the bill. The next person that I would like to introduce also is a member of the Crampon faculty, and perhaps what you don't know about her is she's also an alumna of Yorktown Central School District. Her name is Roberta Marrow, and she's a speech pathologist here. And what I would tell you about Roberta very easily and quickly is that she manages to work with the 5th grade teachers to welcome the students into her speech class so that they can connect exactly what they're doing in class with what she's teaching them in speech. And apart from teaching them how to articulate themselves well and be confident and poised in their speaking, she also gives them that feeling that they can do it. They can do anything. They're just like anyone else on the grade level. And you can see how spirited they become. I think what I was most taken about or with when they came into her classroom that day that I observed was every one of them greeted me and shook my hand. And I thought, that's a pretty remarkable thing for a 5th grader to do. You would agree, right? I mean, I could be imposing, but I wasn't. I told you I was very pleasant. Can I stay? I always say the same, can I stay? So I would like you to meet Roberta Marrow. And it's occurring to me that I keep saying they're getting inducted. Please forgive me. I'm kind of mixing up my National Honor Society, and they're being tenured. It sounds like you're getting inducted into a fraternity. Believe me, you're getting tenure, that's for sure. The last person from Crampon School that I would like to introduce you to is Krista Sassano. And very similar to Caitlin and to Roberta, she works very, very closely with the 5th grade team, and she does a masterful job encouraging the students, giving them critical, I guess, strategies as to how to work the curriculum to their favor so that they never have to go back to the classroom feeling that they know less or they can do less. I think what always pleases me and encourages me so much is how confident the students come into the room and how more confidently they leave the room, knowing that they have had this wonderful teacher impact them. Yes, I do want to remember Mrs. Roberts is whispering to me that although I'm not imposing, and I always ask, can I stay? It seemed on the day that I went to observe Miss Sassano, she broke out in the hives, which made me feel absolutely terrible. You could only know from my perspective. And it kept getting worse the more she kept explaining, I don't know what's happening. I thought, oh my God, it's me. And so, I really thought, you should go to the nurse and I'll take over the class. I can do this. And you did really have a lot of hives. You did. It was a terrible thing. Was it? Yeah. But you masked it well when you were going like that. I thought it was part of the lesson. I thought it was you did a great job. So at any rate, yeah, you survived the hives, and I'll never come again. So please meet Ms. Sassano.
I won't break down the hives, I promise.
And so I thank you, Mrs. Roberts. I thank you, Crampon staff, for coming. But stay, don't you go. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Horowitz to come forward. And Mrs. Horowitz is our middle school principal. And we have a candidate who is receiving tenure in the middle school, and her name is Melissa Herrero. And before I... Who was that? Yeah, that was definitely Maureen Gallery. Definitely Maureen Gallery. At any rate, before I call Melissa up, again, I would like to tell you all that she is a proud alumna of the Yorktown Central School District. And similarly as I reported with the other teachers that you met, I also had the opportunity to do an informal observation in Melissa's reading class. She's one of our reading specialists at the middle school. And it was simply perfection. In fact, it was one of the lessons that I wrote about in one of the newsletters. Every once in a while when I see something really good right before a newsletter, and I see good things all the time, but it could be that it's right the day before the newsletter is going out. And Melissa's lesson was one that I highlighted because from beginning to end, it just was so special in that all of the students were involved, all of the students were interested, and all of the students were very comfortable, very relaxed, but learning throughout the 45 minutes that they were there. Was it really 45 minutes? Something like that, right? So 42. I stayed an extra 3 minutes to see if she could get the hives. And please join me in welcoming Ms. Herrero. Okay, Mrs. Horowitz, you're off the hook. Now, I hope you notice this middle school crowd because they can be a little audacious. Do you notice the way there's so many of them in the back row that are really loud? Starting with that Miss Rasulo, she pretends that she's not loud. Look at that innocent, yeah. So I just want to say my very first experience, my very first year here, I'll never forget Deirdre Amerling. Is Deirdre in the audience? Okay, so Deirdre, you would remember this. My first year here, you were receiving tenure as the assistant principal of the middle school. And interestingly enough, as you're trying to meet people, Linda Grimm, if you recall, had breakfast all the time. Do you recall that? So in this first breakfast that I was invited to, I sat next to Darlene, and pronounce her last name. What is it? Yeah, okay. So, so when I introduced myself to Darlene, she introduced herself back and said that name. I didn't hear it correctly. I thought she said, "I'm Darlene, the nurse." So I thought, wow, you know, I better not take too much food because this one's the nurse. She'll be watching everything I have on the plate. So I went and I took, you know, a grape, a strawberry, nothing that I was interested in. Bypassed the bagel, bypassed the muffin, bypassed anything that looked caloric. I go back to sit down next to Darlene, and her plate, bella me, it was full. So I thought, how could this one be the nurse? What are we kidding? So I said to her, "I'm sorry, what did you say your position was?" She said, "Oh, I'm the guidance secretary." I leaped over that table. You would have thought it was a sprint that would put anybody to shame. But by the time I got back to the food table, Linda Grimm had already put everything away. And I said, "Yeah, hey, Linda, you know, I didn't get anything to eat because I thought she was the nurse." She said, "We're moving on." I said, "Moving on to what? I'm hungry." And that was my recollection of Darlene, who's retiring this year. And I'm not quite sure how that matches with your, but it does. There must have been something, there must have been a Deirdre connection, but I don't know what it is. Forgive me, I'm under a lot of stress. I might break out in the hives myself. So I guess I would ask Mr. DeGennaro, would you come and join me, please? So as you know, Mr. DeGennaro is the high school principal, and he has two of his faculty members that are going to be tenured this evening. And one of them has a very special name, and it's very important that you hear it. Her name was Monica Caputo, but then she got married, and her name became Monica Fratancangeli. Now, I know that you wouldn't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that, except that she's the speech pathologist. So, you know, when you have a name like that that rolls right off the kid's tongue, you know, Fratancangeli, you could see how they would come right in and say that. And this is why my fracture isn't healing. I can't stop communicating with my hand. As with all the other people that we spoke about, I also went in and did an observation. And what was really interesting about poor Monica's observation is I saw Mike Rosen in the room. And I thought, gee, I wonder what he's doing in there. But I thought maybe he just stopped in to chat. So he came out, and I went in, and I said, "He just came in to chat, right?" And she said, "No, he just came in to do a formal observation." So I said, "Oh." I said, "I'll come back." And she said, "Oh, no, you made the steps." I made the steps. You know, I went up the steps. You know, you went up once, you better not go up again. You might end up falling and fracturing your hand. So she said, "No, it's really fine. You can stay." And so imagine being observed first by your immediate supervisor in pupil personnel services, and the chaser is the superintendent of schools. But again, what's so phenomenal about these people who are being tenured this evening, it's almost like something magic happens. As soon as the bell rings, they really forget that you're in the room because it becomes what it's supposed to become, all about the children. And I think the one lesson that I've learned over 43 years is when you keep the children at the center of everything you do, you never misstep, you never make a mistake, you never worry, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. And that's what magically happens. And in Monica's classroom, it was the same. It became a conversation with the student, and it was related and relevant to a book that they were reading in their traditional English class. And it was teaching the student how to identify words that they would not necessarily know, but using contextual clues in order to recognize those words. And I can tell you by the time it was over, there wasn't a word that she left the room not knowing. And it was just a remarkable thing, and I enjoyed it very, very much. So without further delay, I will introduce you to, sometimes it pays to keep your maiden name, Monica Frattancangeli. Forgive me. And probably one of the most pleasant people that you could ever know in the high school is Maria Granazio. Maria has a perpetual smile on her face no matter what time you see her or where she is in the high school. She passes, she greets you, and she always seems to be remarkably aware of who's around and what she needs to say to make them feel better about getting through their day. I had the opportunity, she works very closely with Barbara Williams, who I saw in the audience. And there's Barbara. Barbara is one of our English teachers at the high school, and Maria and Barbara are a ICT team, and they are just spectacular. Again, when you walk into a classroom and you see students who are anxious to learn and who really want to be involved in their learning, you know that something special is going on, and that's what I saw when I went into that classroom. Everybody was involved from the minute the period started until the minute the period ended. The teachers circulated. It was like a brilliant performance of two people working together so perfectly so that the students would have a great experience, and they did, and so did I. So sometimes when you watch that in motion, you just say, this is what we do. This is what really makes education beautiful. And Maria is part of that beautiful fabric at the high school. Now, another thing about Maria, although unlike Roberta Marrow, who graduated from our schools, and unlike Melissa Herreo, who graduated from our schools, Maria Granazio graduated from St. Catherine Academy. And I was principal of St. Catherine Academy, but not in Maria's time. Not in Maria's time, right, Maria? Okay, good. All right, very good. I'm old, but you know what? There's a limit. And I just would say this. You're really not Maria. You look very young, but this is what I want to say. This is what I want to say. I have to make this very important point. I was at Crampon School, and I was hosting all of the former people that I've taught in the Bronx. So I had a line of people waiting who are former students to greet me. And this one young woman who, her and her sister are both parents in our district, I was having a huge conversation with her, and I could see that there was a young man. I guess they're not so young anymore. They're probably all in their 50s, but he was to the side waiting to see me. So when he got to my place, he said, oh, you're catching up with all your former students. So I said, oh, she wasn't my student. Her mother was my student. Now, and that happened to have been the truth, but I taught her mother on the college level, and the mother was about 15 years older than me. The three children went through school, and then when the kids were old enough to go to high school, she went back to college. I was on the college level at the time. So, but when you should have seen the flawed look on his face when I said, I didn't teach her. She was about 45. I said, I taught her mother. And he was like, man, how old are you? He said, you better rush that retirement. I mean, you better get going. So I'd like you to meet, I forgot where I was, Maria Granazio. Thank you. So, Mrs. Berry, would you join me? And as all of you know, Mrs. Berry is the principal of Mohansick School. Now, what you might know not know about Mrs. Berry is she's always looking to negotiate a deal for Mohansick School. She's an interesting principal. She doesn't really know that there are any other buildings in the district but Mohansick. Whenever you say, but you know, the other schools, and she'll say, other schools? It's always like a surprise, right, Mrs. Berry? Yeah, and she does it with Dennis. Look at Dennis for boys. In cahoots, same thing. Dennis and negotiating the deals with Susie, much to the chagrin of Mr. Cole, who then gets the bill. You say, what do you think you might like to do? She said, I have a little project. And next thing you know, she's redesigned the whole Mohansick campus. She's added a heliport. This is another group you have to watch. She wants a heliport on the top of the building. She wants door-to-door, what would you? A fitness center, right? Absolutely. Mrs. Carbone is shaking her head no. So the group of people that are going to be tenured at Mohansick School are certified teaching assistants. And I think, as all of you know, we are really blessed in the fact that we have probably 100 of the best teaching assistants in the region. They are professional, they are wonderful, and they are so good to our students and such an intricate part of our classrooms. Whenever I go into a building, and I'm lucky enough to go into a classroom where there is an assistant available, you again see masterful work and genuine interest and care for the children. When we recently had a tragic loss at Mohansick School of one of our parents, the kindergarten student whose parent died, actually, and has a brother in the high school and also a sister at the college level. As I had said to our teachers when I went over to Mohansick, the little girl seemed so lost, 5 years old. I don't know that I would say necessarily at that moment sad, but lost, just why am I here? And it was a very, for me, a very moving moment of, God, this child is not going to have a mother, and she's only 5 years old. There's just something wrong with that. And as she was concentrating on what everybody else was doing, walking behind her mother's casket, all of a sudden she spotted her teacher's in the audience right now, that's Mrs. Del Bazo, and she spotted the teacher assistant who was standing side by side with Mrs. Del Bazo. And as soon as she saw them, you talk about the rescue of the hurt was gone. She immediately began waving, and I think she may have even blown kisses at you, or you did to her. I don't recall how exactly it went, but it for me was the touching moment of we never lose sight of our students in ordinary circumstances, and we certainly would never lose sight of them in extraordinary circumstances. And this was an extraordinary circumstance. And again, for our teacher assistants, it would be hard for me to express in all the ways that they make a difference in the classrooms, because there are so many ways that they do it. They work with small groups. They work with the large group. They take over when the teacher is called out to a meeting. They stay with our students on recess, which when 100 students are having recess, that's not the easiest thing in the world. They're in the cafeteria with our students. They're just about everywhere that's important for them to be. And we probably have three of them, in my opinion, the best CTAs receiving tenure this evening. And I would like you to welcome them. So the first one is Lori Melangrano. So Lori. we have Jamie Wilson. I just lost sight of her. Jamie Wilson. And Christine O'Meara. And Christine works very closely with Robin Berman, one of our teachers. And I recall walking into one of your classes one day, and you and Christine were sitting with the children on the floor, and I forgot what magical thing they brought along. Did they bring something from home that they were sharing? There was no magical thing brought from home. Every day was magical, and all the magic comes from all comes from Robin and Christine. I don't remember what they were doing, but I was impressed. Everybody was working very diligently. I'm sure she is. So, Mrs. Amerling, I know that Mrs. Angelini couldn't make it this evening, so I guess we won't bring Deirdre up, even though I told that remarkable story of when she got tenure at the middle school 10 years ago. But the person from her building is Diane Angelini. She was a former teacher here at a point in time, took a maternity leave, and then came back as a teaching assistant. She does a remarkable job. I'm sure she was an excellent teacher. That was before my time, so I can't speak to that. But as a teacher assistant, and primarily, I guess she's working with the kindergarten classes. Yeah, and I think when you're around the children, you always have to be at your best, on your best, and very happy, because you know that it's not so much what they hear from us, it's what they see from us that they really model. And I think they see a lot of good things here. This is an amazing school district. I have been very proud to serve here for the past 11 years as a superintendent. And this evening I feel particularly proud, as I started the conversation at the beginning, when you see some really remarkable people replacing you in the field, you kind of can step back and say, I don't feel so badly. Right now I feel very much mixed emotions. Somebody just asked me, how do you feel about retiring? Well, frankly, I haven't really thought much about it because I've been very busy. But on July 10th, I'll let you know. I think it's a mixed emotion kind of thing. I think on the one hand, you know kind of intuitively it's time. And on the other hand, you say, gee, but I feel like there's so much more to do. But when you are passing the baton, so to say, I know that sounds cliche, onto some really great and wonderful people you're proud of, people that make a difference every day in the classroom, people that make you happy to know that you're an educator. It's so much easier to let go of the reins. One of my former students, I always like to do this to people, one of my former students is a CTA in the district, and she's sitting here, and I'm going to introduce her because I always do that. I don't know why I do it. It's very important to me. So that's Andrea Corrado Palumbo. And what I would tell you about Andrea is she made a mistake when she was growing up in the Bronx. She made a mistake of choosing the wrong high school. And she went there for a year, and then she transferred to the right high school. And her mother sent me a beautiful letter at the end of sophomore year telling me that's where you should have been from. And we loved you. You were absolutely brilliant. So it's great to see you. So I think now, finally, we have one more person that we would like to recommend for tenure, and I'm going to invite Mr. Cole and Mrs. O'Shea to please join me at the podium. And at this time, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the tenure of one of our central office administrators, Dr. Sheila McGinnis, who's the Director of Human Resources. Most assuredly, Dr. McGinnis has one of the most difficult jobs in the district as she sorts through the many laws, mandates, policies, contracts, which seem to be enacted, changed, reviewed, updated on a daily basis. It's up to Dr. McGinnis to implement all of the rules, protocols, and regulations that govern school districts, and to make the information available and, more importantly, understandable to our 550 employees. It is a task that requires a yeoman's skill set, knowledge, patience, fortitude. However, with grace and thoughtfulness, Dr. McGinnis makes a very difficult job look very doable and easy. However, we know that her job is not easy. So please help me in welcoming our central office partner, Dr. Sheila McGinnis. And so as I thought about how to conclude this tenure recognition evening, I looked long and hard at my many, many speeches and vignettes over the years, and I finally decided on something very simple, which was written by an unknown author. But I hope that you'll agree with his sentiment or her sentiment, and that for what it's worth, you'll remember it somehow this evening. 100 years from now, it will not matter what kind of car you drove in, what kind of house you lived in, how much money you had in your bank account, and what clothes you wore. 100 years from now, what will matter is that the world is a little bit better, a little bit kinder, and a little bit gentler, because all of you made the difference in the life of a child. Congratulations to all of you this evening. I'm very, very proud of you. And I'm going to turn, I guess I'm going to ask the board to sit down. I'm going to turn the program back over to Mrs. Carbone, who I guess officially now, do you do something official? Yes. She does. She officially, I only can recommend, she officially tenures everybody. And then after Jackie does that, we're going to ask to take a short break. We do have some refreshments. We'd love to chat with you. And if we haven't met your families, we'd love to do that too. So thank you very much for being with us this evening. And congratulations to everyone. Congratulations.
Well, Ralph, it was another wonderful night, so thank you very much. A wonderful group of teachers you've brought forward again. We're going to go forward onto our personnel agenda. So upon recommendation of the superintendent, wait, is that where we're supposed to be? Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry.
Should have been public comment.
I know, where's public
Where's
comment?
public comment?
It's below the budget
It's below
hearing.
that, number 6.
There should be another one.
Is anybody here wishing to
should be,
speak on agenda-related items? Okay, I covered it. So upon recommendation of the superintendent, a motion that the following be approved. We have, of course, the tenure appointments we just did. We have regular substitute appointments, seasonal substitute appointments, an amended appointment, and some classified personnel.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have another resolution. This is a motion to rescind. A rescind resolution, be it resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education hereby rescinds the resolution approved at the April 3rd, 2017 board meeting terminating the probationary appointment of employee 5181. And be it resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the board president to execute an employment-related agreement regarding employee 5181 as presented to the board at this meeting. A copy of said agreement shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of employee 5181 from her special ed teaching position effective close of business June 30th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are now up to our public hearing on the budget. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ralph, do you want to take over the presentation?
I think I'm going to turn it over to Tom.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Napolitano. The 2017-2018 proposed budget this year is in the amount of $98,170,000. It represents a $160,000 increase from the prior year. The tax rate estimates for the town of Yorktown, the increase rate is 0%. For the town of Newcastle, minus 4.69%. And for the town of Cortland, plus 3.4%. The rate of increase from last year, the $160,000, represents an amount equal to 0.16%. The budget was presented in 7 individual pieces this year. All 7 presentations are available on the district website. The line-by-line budget is also available on the website. The budget is available in the budget booklet and also by newsletter that comes home to every household. Some information on the budget is included therein as well.
Okay. So there'll be propositions on the ballot. Of course, the first proposition will be that of the annual school budget. There will be a second proposition, which is the capital reserve fund, which will read as follows. Shall the Yorktown Central School District be authorized to establish a capital reserve fund to be designated as the Buildings and Facilities Improvement Reserve Fund for construction of additions, improvements, reconstruction, and equipping of district buildings and facilities and athletic facilities, including incidental improvements and expenses at a maximum amount of $12 million and a maximum term of 10 years, to be funded with appropriations from surplus fund balance at the end of each fiscal year and other available funds to such reserve. We also have 2 board seats that are up, and the 2 candidates running are Mr. D'Alessandro and Mr. Magnani. The 2 vacancies have terms that will run from July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2020. Yvette, can you make that correction on here? Is there anybody in the public wishing to comment on the budget? Do any board members want to comment on the budget? I would just like to say thank you very much. I think you guys have done another phenomenal job. You have always kept an eye on the education of our students and, you know, the respect of our buildings and our staff, yet always managed to make sure that the taxpayers were kept in mind as we keep these budgets low. So this is the second year of a 0%, and we thank you for your fiscal being fiscally prudent. So thank you. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're going to go to policy adoption. A motion to approve the second reading and adoption of the following policies. We have 3,000 goals and objectives, 3120 duties of the superintendent, and 3,200 administrative organization.
Aren't you pulling that one?
Is that the one we were pulling?
Yes.
32? No,
3240.
3240. Okay, so those are the 3. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Policy deletion. Be it resolved that the following policies shall be deleted from the policy manual because they were either obsolete, unnecessary, or included in other policies. We have 2110.1 board member school visits and 2140 board member removal from office.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have first reads. We have 2120.2 voting procedures, 2121 board member qualifications, 2130 board member resignation, and 2150 filling board vacancies. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? Obviously, you can see what section we're on. Any questions, any comments? No? Okay. I want to thank Cheryl. She has done a great job on a lot of what we're working on right now, so thank you. Yeah, she has been. All right. So we're up to the business office. Resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education approves the contract with Hudson Valley Charter Service for transportation for the Mildred E. Strang Middle School 7th grade trip to West Point.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? In curriculum, we have a motion to approve the consulting agreement for professional development with Dr. Michelle Borba, the author of Unselfie, and the Yorktown Central School District on October 31st, 2017, not to exceed $7,000.
It's August.
August, didn't I say that?
Said October.
August. No, she's coming in August.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Special education, a motion to arrange the following special education placements as of May 8, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Gifts, grants, and donations. A motion to accept with gratitude at the middle school a low vision machine from Lisa Epstein and George Personic, $1,050 from the Mildred East Strang, for the Mildred East Strang for the Squeaky Clean School Assembly. I'm assuming that's from the PTA? Okay. At Crampon, a visit by author Phil Bildner will visit the school funded by the Crampon PTA. At Brookside, 8363 from the United Way Easy Match GE Give Program, $220.50 from the Box Tops for Education. At Mohansick, a complimentary assembly from Mad Science Marvels of Motion Science Show for the second grade. And at the high school, $12 from the New York Life matching payroll donation.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everybody, for your very generous gifts. We are up to board comments. You want to start, Anthony?
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations, wonderful night, all the teachers that made tenure, congratulations to the administration. It was fantastic.
Christine? Mike?
Yes, as always, terrific job, Ralph.
Thank you.
You put a lot into this night, and it clearly shows. And we've got a wonderful group of people coming in, staying with us anyway, so that was fantastic.
Thank you.
It was a great evening, and it's probably one of the most memorable evenings of our board meetings. And on the budget front, Tom and Ralph, thank you very much for all your hard work, and thank you.
I'm good, thanks.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Again, I echo what everybody says. Thank you very much. I am glad we are done with budget season.
Me too.
I know Tom is.
Yeah, we still have a vote.
We have a vote, but all of our hard work is done, and the community now gets to make the decision. The vote is on May 16th, which is next Tuesday, all day long at Crampon from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Mohansick.
Mohansick, where'd I say? Crampon, sorry. I'm not doing well today.
That's okay.
In October. May 16th at Mohansick Elementary School.
That's it.
Okay. We're up to public comment. Anybody wishing to speak? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, guys.